what excites me and lights me up and is really the why behind what I do is watching clients have those aha moments. If you are struggling with belief in yourself, borrow some of the belief I have in you. Watching them start to believe in themselves and really own that CEO mentality and like really leaning into that and stepping into that, I can't express how much joy that gives me. And that's really why I do what I do, right? And that can be as far as realizing that I don't have to have a front and back page single spaced goal list that I need to get done as Wonder Woman, right? But really identifying what they want in their life and then being able to step into that and claim it.
Welcome to She Coaches Coaches, the podcast where we have thoughtful, honest conversations about what it really takes to build a thriving coaching business. I'm your host, Candy Motzek, and before building my business, I spent years as a senior corporate leader. Now, today, I work with coaches who are smart, well-trained, and deeply capable, and who want clarity about how to grow in a way that feels aligned and financially sustainable. On this show, I sit down with successful coaches to explore the real decisions behind their success, how they got started, what shifted as they grew, and the mindset and business choices that helped them gain momentum without burning out. Whether you're early in your coaching journey or refining a business you've already built, She Coaches Coaches is here to offer perspective, confidence, and grounded insight to support your next chapter. To learn more about how I work with people, go to my website, stepintosuccessnow.com. And now let's dive in. Hey, everyone, and welcome back. Welcome to this episode of She Coaches Coaches. I have a wonderful guest here for you today. Now, let me take a minute and introduce her. Her name is Debbie Heiser. She's a business strategist, soulful sales expert, and founder of the Lit Up Life. She's a coaching practice owner who's devoted to helping grow profitable businesses and create lives they love without sacrificing what matters most. After a successful 25-year career as an executive in Fortune 500 and Fortune 50 companies, she walked away from corporate life to follow her deeper calling. Today, she blends her expertise in business systems, neuroscience, universal laws, and mindset work to help women step fully into their purpose and leadership. Welcome to the show, Debbie. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you, Candy. I'm really honored to be here today, and I can't wait to get into this discussion.
And I love your bio as I'm reading, and I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I resonate with all of that, as do my clients and the listeners for this show. So a really great match. Tell me, what is really exciting? What are you most excited about right now in your business?
Yeah, I think, it's really hard to say just one thing, but I will say for me, what excites me and lights me up and is really the why behind what I do is watching clients have those aha moments, watching them. What I always say is if you are struggling with belief in yourself, borrow some of the belief I have in you. So watching them start to believe in themselves and really own that CEO mentality and like really leaning into that and stepping into that, I can't express how much joy that gives me. And that's really why I do what I do. And that can be as far as realizing that I don't have to have a front and back page single spaced goal list that I need to get done as Wonder Woman, right? But really identifying what they want in their life and then being able to step into that and claim it, so many times. So I'd say that's the biggest piece, watching them own their sovereignty, own the fact that they feel like they are called to do something, that they have a bigger purpose in this life, that they're helping other people have more life, right? Like that lights me up watching them really step into their power.
I'm really seeing a transformation in the marketplace these days with this shift to these really soulful based businesses. And what you just described, like I'm seeing it over and over and over. It's a trend. And I believe it's that so many people, women specifically, have really climbed that corporate ladder. Like we've jumped the hoops. We've been yes, I'd love the stretch assignment. Yes, I can do this. Sure, give me that promotion. We've done all that. And then there was something missing. And it's kind of hard to put your finger on it. Are you seeing something similar with the people you're working with?
Yeah. And Candy, I would say, I think from being an executive, both at a domestic corporation in the US and a worldwide company where I had some pretty high level positions and I was one of very few women in the room with a lot of masculine. I think what we're starting to see is the feminine, and I don't mean gender, but the feminine energy come forward and, that creativity, that flow, that getting into the work. And I think we're starting to see some paradigm shift a little bit, whether it be in corporate or just in business and this transformation that part of the feminine is in receiving. So like when I'm coaching other coaches or I'm coaching business people, we can set up the systems, we can do the things, but if we're not open to receiving, it's deflecting. So I'm seeing this kind of it's almost like a tentative embrace of this ability to receive and be open to receiving versus being in the hustle, doing the actions, doing what I consider more of the masculine structure that supports the feminine. And if you think about it, Candy, I've had many conversations with people recently trying to break this mold of we always have to be in action. So I'm seeing a shift of that. And depending on what you believe astrologically and all of these kinds of things, right? Like we're in this like feminine mode. So watching the feminine move forward has been really refreshing, I think. And I'm seeing it even in a corporate perspective. Like there's a lot of like the US, I'm not going to get into it, but like there's a whole lot of crazy happening right now. And there's a lot of, and I think part of it is because we've been so used to more of this masculine thing and it's starting to kind of balance out or merge a little bit. And I think that's scary for what we've seen as the structure of what happens in business in the past.
I mean, and I was this way when I started my business as well. I'm used to that hustle. Like, give me a project plan. I can deliver it. I can figure this out. I've got the strategy. I can do all these things. Like, just do, do, do. It really goes down with this bro culture that we've
Yeah,
seen a lot,
absolutely.
especially in the online business world. And it is scary going, okay, wait a minute, to accept more of an allowing,
Mm,
more of I can sit back and do some. Of course, we're never inactive, but do inspired action
yeah.
instead of that push action. And about what you think.
Absolutely, Candy. And I've been having these conversations lately because the way our structure in life is set up in business, we are given promotions, we're given raises, we're given accolades for producing more. Right. So having our foot on the gas. Well, ultimately, what I tell people is the less I work, the more I make. And honestly, like people look at me and they're like, you're nuts. I come from in the United States, the Midwest, there's a very big culture about you have to work hard to play hard, right? Like you have to work hard to make a lot of money. And I'm here to tell you, I downhill skied this year, not so much because we haven't had great snow, but I downhill ski typically 3 mornings a week. Every other week, I'm hanging out with my grandsons on an afternoon, and I'm still producing more than I used to monetarily. And part of that also is when we're flowing between the masculine and feminine, because we need both, what happens is things are attracted to us. So when I'm leading my lit up life, other people are attracted to that. Right. So then they come to me and it's a response versus me having to hustle. I also say it's really important to slow down to speed up. So when I do VIP days with clients, they fly into and come to my house and we start out with a nature walk and we spend an hour. Like we go into the forest, they do a nature walk. We have a very specific thing. We're letting go to let come. And we do that so that they do allow themselves to slow down, integrate our energetic bodies, our heart, our mind, all of it. Because in order to tap into our intuition and see what's coming and have foresight, we need to be able to slow down to be able to see it. Like as an example, I'm getting ready. I know this is going to be later in the summer, but I'm getting ready to go to Palermo, California and go hang out with a bunch of Jesuit monks. I'm not Catholic, but through Gonzaga where I teach some, like we're going to go in and you just go into this flow. We don't pay attention to a clock. We're unplugged. And it really allows me that spaciousness to be able to think and also elevating to that CEO mentality where we're working on our business more than we're working in the details. we were joking beforehand. Candy was asking me for my bio. I'm like, well, I got people that help me with that. Let me see if I can find one, right? Like, because I want to work 75% I live by the plus or minus rule by 10, right? So like that 70%, I want to be working on my business and then having other people to help support or systems support the detail part of it. And it takes a little time. Like I've had people try to go into business as a coach and say, oh, this is going to happen overnight. I'm like, it takes some ramp up time to get that to happen. And it's also sometimes investing in faith, right? Knowing that I'm going to invest and the money is going to come, which is opposite of what we're taught.
So, question. Just
Yeah.
the lit up life, just
Yeah.
that in and of itself. Talk to me a little bit about how you came to that phrase and what it means to you.
Yeah, so I will tell you the legal name of my business is Three Vines Consulting and Leadership Development, and I started out. I actually have a necklace on that's the infinity symbol, but people thought I was a winery consultant. So I'm like, well, at the time I don't drink as much anymore, and I didn't drink a lot, but like I don't really drink anymore, and so I'm like, I need to change that. I don't want people thinking I'm just consulting winery people, right? So that industry. So as I started to think about it, and my podcast was originally named Lead Your Life with Debbie Heiser, and I do leadership, and that's what I teach at Gonzaga. So it really became, for me, the tree of life really means a lot. So my logo kind of looks like a tree of life, but it looks like flames. I call myself a chief igniter because really we all have a deep knowing of who we are and what we want. We just need permission sometimes, right? We need other people to help ask the questions to dig us out of us. So my logo is really, it looks like three different people, but it looks like a tree with a circle. And really for me, like so many years, Candy, I mean, I'm not ashamed to say in a few weeks I'm going to be 59. And for too many years, so my mom passed away at the age of 58. So I am now today older than my mother was when she died. And so about 5 or 6 years ago, and I started this, back in 2014, I was doing kind of a side gig working with different businesses. And when I stepped fully in, it was really about, I had been doing things that I felt like I should be doing because I was the oldest child in my family, or I grew up here and this was the expectation that you went to college, you got a corporate job, you lived a nice life, and you lived for the weekends. And I realized, I finally was like, you know what? That's not how I want to live my life. And I don't want to be in this kind of grind during the week, because when you're in corporate, I mean, corporate was very good to me. I'm not going to down corporate, but you don't spend 40 hours a week there. You spend a whole lot more, and there's an opportunity cost to that. But in the long run, I looked at it and I thought, you know what? That to me is not a harmonious life. I don't like the word balance because I feel like it sets you up because it's never completely like this balance, right? It's a dance. It flows back and forth. So that's the meaning behind it for me. And to me, being lit up like that has some hoop spot to it, right? Like it's not just like, oh yeah, I want to lead a life that feels joyful. And it's all of that combined, right? It's scary sometimes for people because they're not used to it.
What's the biggest thing in giving yourself permission to live that lit up life? When you've got your clients, what do they need to make that jump?
Yeah, Candy, that's a loaded question. Loaded. And what I mean by that, Candy, is that, I use a similar system with everybody, but everyone has a different desire, right? Like we live in a three-dimensional world. So we need money in order to, we weren't all called to be here to be Mother Teresa or Gandhi, right? And so in order to function in the world, we need money, and money comes through sales, through people from the universe or God, whatever is your belief system, Buddha, whatever. So like we have to understand that and work within some of that avenue. But really what I see stop people is when you think about really simplistic brain science, we have a conscious brain that can deflect messages, but our subconscious brain can only accept messages. And those messages become beliefs, which create our identity, because the identity is belief with emotion. So when somebody wants something, and media has depicted that if you want something, and particularly if you're a woman, that is not a good thing, right? And so we have been trained in our brain with these messages, and some of them have been very subconscious. I always use, there's a movie called Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And the very first one that came out with Gene Wilder, the little girl that came in and she said, I want, I want, I want, right? Like she was depicted as being this little brat, this snot that all she did was she was selfish and she wanted what she wanted. So that's how subliminal it is sometimes in this messaging. So really, the reason I say it's loaded is the messaging is different a lot of times for people, but the core of it is they don't think they're worth it, or they think something's wrong with them, right? So when you get to the core of whatever those messages are that are stopping them or create the fear, which is just really false evidence appearing real. And that's why I said it's loaded, because there's so many different avenues to go down, but it's about unlocking what those messages are that are stopping you from doing the inspired action. Because we've all fallen prey to that.
And
We all know that.
continue to in
Absolutely.
some aspect of life, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, Candy, we all just want to be loved. And I'm a firm believer that we have a self-worth epidemic in this world. Because if people valued their own worth, we wouldn't see the things happening, right? The unkindness, the death, and the things that are happening that people are doing to other people. And it's because hurt people hurt people.
Yeah. So then, I mean, just at the core of it, if you've got a worth challenge in the world, it's
Yeah.
not just your self-worth, it's also realizing that everyone else has worth as well.
Absolutely.
And that really smooths out that whole hierarchical life. One of the things about this, there's a bit of a nuance between I want and
Mhm.
I desire.
Yeah.
Have you found that that comes into play in the work that you do?
I don't like, a lot of times I'll just say, well, what do you want? Right? To try to get them to that desire, because so many times, particularly women, we shy away from pleasure. And if I have a desire, then a lot of times people attach pleasure to a desire. Like, who am I to be able to feel joy because this happens? And so just talking about what is it that you want. And typically, Candy, what I start out with, and I use physical health as an example, is I'll say, okay, let's talk about physical health. What is it that you complain about in your physical health? What do you tolerate in your physical health? And what are you frustrated by in your physical health? Because usually people come with a mindset that they know what they don't want. And what happens is what we focus on gets bigger. So we want to shift from what we don't want, but they're too afraid to say what they do want. So we start there and then we just flip it, because usually what they don't want, if you flip it, the opposite of that is what they want.
Yes. And
Right.
it might not be exactly, but it's a
Right.
great hot track, right?
Absolutely. And it gets them then to understand that they have desires, they have wants. And then I'll start to shift the verbiage to a desire, right? Because desire has a depth to it versus the want of kind of a fleeting kind of thing. But people struggle going to that depth, I found, at the very beginning.
Yeah. I can remember when I used to do a lot of personal coaching with people and just that initial in the early sessions, what do you want? And it would be like a deer in the headlights. They would have put their own desires off for so long that they've actually forgotten them. And it's kind of an amazing thing because as soon as they realize that, it's that spark to like, oh my gosh, I'm working so hard. I'm doing all these things. I've checked all the boxes, but I don't even know what I want anymore. And that really can be that spark to get them moving. There-
Absolutely. Because that's where we end up going next, Candy, because so many times we wear hats as mothers, as sisters, as daughters, as corporate whatever, and titles, and we forget who we are.
Debbie, let's just take a slight turn here. I'd love to talk about transformation and the transformation that somebody might want to bring into their life, into their business. And I know that this is work that you do with your clients. What would you like to share?
Yeah, I think what I'd like to share is I'm going to tell a little bit of a story and a metaphor to kind of lead into this. If you think about yourself as a container, so as a vase, like think about whatever you want your vase to look like. And we have an unending supply of energy coming into our vase. And what happens is we're taught in society to pour out into other people, into other things. We're asked to be, on a board that we don't really want to be a part of. We're asked to do things or be part of a PTA. You're asked to be involved in these things that you don't really want to say yes to. It's somewhat in alignment, but we feel this guilt and shame and we want to do it. So we turn our vase and we pour out into this. And it's something that we're doing that we don't really want to say yes to. And this is the universal law of sacrifice, right? In the fact that when we say yes to something that's not truly aligned with who we are and what we want, it seeps out energy and it doesn't allow the space for those things that are coming into our lives that are what I call the hell yeses, right? Like those things that are coming in that are in alignment with who we are, what we do in the world. So when you think about yourself as this vase, when you turn your vase and cut off the supply, you end up drained. So then people get burned out, they get tired because the energy has seeped out. Versus if I'm standing tall and I know what I'm available for, this is the key piece of that, right? Not boundaries, because boundaries put up walls. And there are certain times that boundaries are important, particularly when you're transforming. But if I know what I'm available for and what I'm not available for, then I can stand tall and I allow that energy to come in and people get my overflow. And that energetically feels very different. But we will say yes to a client that isn't really in alignment with who we are because we're afraid. We're afraid we're not going to make any money or nobody else will come to us or whatever the case would be. And so when I talk about transformation, it's transforming these thoughts to say, I need to know what I'm available for and what I'm not available for. And as women, we don't need to justify when we say, you know what, thank you for asking me to be a part of this. I'm just not available right now.
Yeah.
Mic drop. Right? Like we don't have to say then because I've got this and this and that. Nobody cares.
So there's really this idea of transformation, of changing your thoughts, of knowing what's important, where authentically you stand. And again, it's almost back to permission and desire.
It is. And I think that's the first step of transformation because if you don't have an inkling of that, it's like a map. You don't really know where you're going. It doesn't mean you won't get to the destination eventually and you'll have some great road trips on the side for that. But if we want a quantum leap or if you want to move there faster, then it's about how can we look at that? Now, with transformation too, Candy, I'm a firm believer that you hear it in numerous different ways, like imposter syndrome, monkey mind, whatever. When we go from the metaphysical with having ideas or thoughts or desires of what we want, we reach this border, right? And when we get to the border, it comes into form. So we bring it into the three-dimensional. So what happens is when we're on this path, that monkey mind comes out, which is where the messaging come in. So to your point, earlier we were talking about how it doesn't really end. Like I tell people, you might think you're done with that story that you had in your mind and you've transformed, but guess what? It shows up again and again, just a different way. But the key to that is having tools to identify it that much faster and be able to course correct when you start to go down that path, right? Like having support. When I level up, I've got my counselor on speed dial. When I'm leveling up, I don't reach out to my dad. I love my dad. He's a great father, but he sucks some energy from me, right? Like I'm very conscious of who I'm surrounding myself with when I'm up leveling myself. And so that's a core piece of that whole universal law of sacrifice too, about really understanding and knowing, again, what you're available for and figure out where you need the support and don't feel guilt or shame. We women tend to guilt our guilt and shame our shame.
This metaphor of the vase, and instead of having it tipped, having it upright and being really conscious of what you allow to come in. Do you do a lot of values exploration with your clients? Is that the way that you approach that work?
It depends on the client. I do have that in my toolbox. And if somebody hasn't thought through that, right, when we're doing some strategic visioning and figuring out that piece of it, absolutely, because we have to understand that. When we go through the mastermind, that is a key piece that we look at. Like, what are your core values? Because those have to align with your life plan and with your business plan, right? And because then when you get to a growth edge, then you're able to kind of have your true north and understand, and it kind of becomes your, for lack of a better word, kind of your litmus test, right? Is this the direction I want to go? No, it's not in alignment. So it's creating this dichotomy of tension for me, and I can identify it that much faster. So the answer to that is yes and no, depending on the client. Yeah.
Yeah. So you may do the work or they may already have done the work.
Absolutely.
And to me, it's just what I'm seeing is with the vase metaphor, it's your vase is on a tilt if you're not aligned with your values, because that's the thing that gives you that answer, that yes or no answer. It's kind of interesting to think about that as being a yes or no answer, and then just being very forthright.
just like I'm not
Absolutely.
available for that, just like the words that you said. And so, for the listeners, can you give us a reminder of how do they know if their vase is tilted or upright? What are they going to look for in their body, in their mind?
Say two or three things here. First of all, you have to keep in mind that fear and excitement feel, and when I say feel, I'm talking somatic, your body. Emotion is then how we use language to create a understanding of what we're feeling. So fear and excitement in your body feel the same way. Like if you think about the last time you were afraid of something, a lot of times people say, "Oh, I get this feeling in my gut," right? And then I say, "Okay, tell me the last time you were excited." "Oh, yeah, I get this feeling, these butterflies in my gut," right? It feels the same way. So our brain's job is to predict and protect. So if that's the case, it's always going to take us to the fear. But we have to then consciously choose and say, "No, I'm excited about this." And so part of where I was going with this too is that when I'm feeling some of this tilt, it's usually when I start to question myself, I start to have lack of belief in myself, I go into this imposter syndrome, and that's what feels like a growth edge then. And now anymore, I challenge myself. Like I'm afraid of heights, so I go do things. I jumped out of an airplane. I go do certain things to help remind my brain that I'm okay. Right? Like I'm not going to go jump off of a building, right? Like there's certain safety things that's important that your body tells you don't go do that. But for the most part, those things that I'm afraid of, I try to put myself in situations to remind myself that I can be excited about those things. Because when I'm at that growth edge anymore, I'm kind of like, bring it on. Cause I know the other side of that growth edge is pretty darned exciting, right?
Well, Debbie, I have really enjoyed the conversation, and I know that you have got some amazing free gifts for the listeners. Can you share a little bit about that for us?
Yeah, I have available what's called a next steps call. It's not a pressure sales call, but it's more about what I find is people typically are unclear because they have some kind of fear, which again is false evidence appearing real. And so it's really about helping people get some clarity. And so that is an option for people to reach out. I also have what's called the Embodied CEO, and you can find that on my website. There's different dates that I provide that. It's a 60-minute free kind of, we go through each of the different things around frequency and what kind of frequency are you emitting because we attract the frequency we're emitting. So those are kind of the two I would say that your listeners could take the most advantage of. Yeah.
And we'll make sure to put the links in the episode notes as well. And if they just want to find out more about you, where's the best place for that?
I think the best place is probably twofold. One, out at my website, thelituplife.com. And then secondly, you can follow me I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn as Debbie Heiser or The Lit Up Life. Thank you, Candy. It's been a lot of fun.
Okay, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Debbie has got all the energy. She's got so many ideas and things for you to consider. Now, remember, I don't want you to just listen to this episode and consume it. I want you to listen to what Debbie shared with you and take it in. And then choose one of the things and integrate it. Take it and use it and make it a part of your life. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll be back and speak to you on the next episode.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of She Coaches Coaches. If this conversation resonated, take a moment to reflect on what stood out and how it connects to where you are right now. Coaching businesses grow through clarity and thoughtful choices, not pressure or hustle. If you'd like more support, you can learn more at stepintosuccessnow.com. I'll put the link in the episode notes. And if you found this episode helpful, I'd appreciate it if you would share it with a peer or colleague who would enjoy it as well. I appreciate you being here. Have a great day.